Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling the fascinating and sometimes confusing world where NFTs meet intellectual property.
Non-fungible tokens, yeah, it's a hot topic.
Definitely. And we've got this great new report to Congress from the USPTO and the Copyright Office.
Right, a really useful source for this.
Our goal is basically to unpack the key takeaways for you without getting lost in all the technical jargon.
Keep it practical.
Exactly. Okay, let's dive in.
So what's interesting right off the bat is how this report looks at, existing IP law.
Laws that have been around a while.
Exactly, and how they mesh, or sometimes don't mesh, with this new digital tech. It's the legal system playing catch-up, really.
So for someone maybe newer to this, what is an NFT? Just the basics. According to the report, we hear crypto tokens, blockchain.
Okay, yeah, the report boils it down nicely. Three main things. First, it's a unique digital token. Think of it like a one-of-a-kind digital certificate.
Yeah, okay.
Second, who owns that certificate? That's recorded on a blockchain, a very public, permanent digital ledger.
Like a shared spreadsheet everyone can see, but nobody can easily change.
Kind of, yeah. And third, holding that token gives you some kind of right or access.
Right, or access to what, though? Give us some examples.
Sure. Digital art is the obvious one, right? But the report says it could be a digital collectible, a voucher for something physical.
Like sneakers.
Like limited edition sneakers, exactly. Or even a right to get royalties from music, maybe. It's pretty broad.
Now, the report makes this big distinction, the NFT token versus the asset it's linked to. Why is that so important?
It's absolutely key because while each NFT token itself is unique.
Like a serial number.
Right. You can actually have multiple unique tokens all pointing to the same underlying thing.
Ah, like limited edition prints. Each print has a number, but it's the same photo.
Precisely. An artist could mint, say, 100 unique NFTs, but they all represent ownership linked to one specific digital artwork.
Okay. And what about ownership on the blockchain versus possession? The report flags that too. Sounds subtle.
It is subtle, but significant. The blockchain basically shows who has the token in their digital wallet right now.
So the blockchain thinks that person is the owner.
Technically, yes, from the blockchain's perspective. But as the report points out, that's not always the same as legal ownership.
How so?
Well, what if someone steals an NFT? The thief's wallet now holds the token. The blockchain shows them as the holder.
Even though they don't legally own it.
Exactly. So blockchain ownership is really about control of the token at that moment, not necessarily the legal right.
Okay, got it. We know what they are now. How do they get made? How do they move around? The report talks about minting.
Right, minting. It's basically the act of creating that new unique NFT and publishing it onto the blockchain.
Like officially registering it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Usually happens through an NFT marketplace platform.
And once it's minted, where does it live? How does it change hands? There's that NFT transaction process diagram in the report.
Okay, yeah, the typical flow. First, you need a digital wallet for crypto, for your NFTs.
Your digital purse?
Pretty much. Then you connect that wallet to a marketplace. You upload the file, maybe the artwork you want the NFT to link to.
Onto the marketplace site.
Right. The marketplace then helps record or mint the NFT onto the blockchain, sometimes right away, sometimes when it sells.
And when someone buys it.
Marketplace usually takes a cut, a percentage. Then the NFT token itself gets transferred to the buyer's wallet.
And the buyer can then sell it again?
Usually, yes. They can resell it or transfer it.
Okay, makes sense. NFTs are created, traded.
Yeah.
Now, the core stuff, intellectual property. Let's start with copyright. How do NFTs and copyright interact?
Yes. This is where it gets interesting and complicated. The report looks at copyright issues across the whole life cycle, minting, storing, selling.
The whole shebang.
Right. And one key point first, just minting an NFT that points to a work already online. That itself isn't necessarily a copyright issue.
It's just like a link.
More or less, yeah. Like a bookmark or a reference.
But what if you actually upload a copy of someone's copyrighted photo or song to the platform when you mint?
No, that's different. Uploading a copy, that definitely implicates the copyright holder's reproduction right. You're making a copy.
So you can't just mint NFTs of other people's stuff without permission. Seems obvious, but...
You'd think. But the report flags major concerns about unauthorized minting. People doing exactly that.
And because the blockchain record is hard to change.
It's a real problem. Once that unauthorized NFT is on the chain, it's basically there forever, very hard to erase.
And the report says there aren't many checks at the start. when minting happens.
Exactly. A lack of guardrails, as they
Yeah.
put it. Not much to verify if the minter actually has the rights to the work they're linking the NFT to. That causes headaches down the line.
Okay, what about when someone buys an NFT? Do they automatically get the copyright for the artwork or music it's linked to? I feel like lots of people assume that.
That is a huge point of confusion, and the report is very clear. Generally, no. No. Selling the NFT token does not automatically transfer the underlying copyright. For that, you usually need a separate agreement, a written contract.
Wow. So just buying the NFT gives you the token.
Primarily, yes. You own the token recorded on the blockchain. Any other rights, like the copyright license to use the art, that depends on the terms of sale, or a separate license.
What about those smart contracts? Couldn't they handle a rights transfer?
Well, potentially, yes. The idea is that the code could maybe include licensing terms, but the legal validity and certainty around that still very much up in the air, according to the report.
So someone could pay a fortune for an NFT thinking they own the art.
When legally, they might just own the token pointing to it, with maybe very limited usage rights, huge potential for misunderstanding.
The report mentions this confusion a lot, even creators changing licenses later, like with CC0.
Right. There have been cases where creators used CC0, basically public domain, no rights reserved, and then tried to backtrack. That messes things up for people who bought the NFT thinking they had broad rights.
Okay, so enforcing copyright sounds like a nightmare. You've got pseudonyms,
Anonymous or pseudonymous owners, yeah. Hard to even know who to go after.
and the actual infringing files might be stored where?
Often not even on the main blockchain. They might be on decentralized storage networks like IPFS, not one central server you can target easily.
So a standard DMCA takedown notice might not work as well.
It's much trickier. You can often get the NFT listing removed from a specific marketplace using a DMCA notice, but the underlying file might still exist out there on the decentralized network, and the blockchain record of the infringing NFT itself, that's likely immutable.
So challenges all around for enforcement. What about using NFTs for copyright? Like provenance. What's that?
The idea is using the NFT and the blockchain as a sort of digital chain of title, recording who created it, who owned it when.
Like a history log for the artwork.
Exactly, a transparent, hard to tamper with log. But, and this is crucial, the report stresses, an NFT is not a substitute for official copyright registration.
Ah, so you still need to register with the Copyright Office.
Absolutely. Registration gives you major legal benefits for enforcement that an NFT alone doesn't provide. Same goes for recording transfers. Doing it via NFT isn't the same legally as recording it with the Copyright Office.
Okay, but one positive thing mentioned is resale royalties, right?
Yeah.
For creators.
Yes, this is a big one. The smart contract code in an NFT can be set up to automatically pay the original creator a percentage.
Every time the NFT is resold later on a marketplace.
Exactly. The report notes this is widely used in major NFT projects. It gives creators ongoing income from secondary sales, which is often missing in the traditional art world.
That is a cool feature. Okay, let's shift gears. Trademarks, brands, logos. How are NFTs showing up there?
A few key ways. One big one is linking NFTs to physical goods.
For what purpose?
Authentication. Fighting counterfeits. The NFT acts like a digital proof of authenticity tied to, say, a luxury handbag or a collectible.
Interesting. What about registering trademarks for NFTs or NFT-related things? The report mentions the NICE agreement being tricky.
Yeah, the NICE agreement classifies goods and services for trademarks. NFTs are slippery because they can be so many different things. Digital art, that's one class. A voucher for services, another class. Virtual sneakers, maybe another.
So it's hard to categorize them neatly.
Exactly. The USPTO is working on guidance for this, holding webinars and such. It's an active issue.
And proving use in commerce for trademarks. That's usually required, right? How does that work with NFTs? Especially collections that sell out instantly.
That's another challenge highlighted. You generally need to show you're actually using the trademark to sell goods or services in the market.
But if an NFT collection sells out in minutes?
Is that enough sustained use? Or what about brands filing for NFT trademarks defensively just in case before they actually launch anything? Does that count? These are open questions.
It seems like likelihood of consumer confusion is still the main test for trademark infringement, even with NFTs.
Absolutely. That's the core of trademark law. Would a consumer likely be confused about the source of the NFT? Do they think it's officially from the brand?
And this applies especially when you have virtual goods or NFTs using marks similar to existing physical goods.
Yes, exactly. How related are virtual sneakers to real sneakers in the consumer's mind? The report mentions key court cases ongoing now, like Hermes versus the Meta Birkins
Right, the digital bags.
and Nike versus StockX involving NFTs linked to physical shoes. Those cases will set important precedents.
What about those Web3 domain names? The report mentions trademark misuse there too.
Yeah, things like cyber squatting, people registering blockchain domain names that are basically famous trademarks.
Trying to trade off the brand's reputation or trick people.
Right. And unlike regular web domains with ICANN dispute resolution, there isn't really a central system like that for these Web3 domains yet. Makes it harder for brands to fight back.
The report even floats the idea of the USPTO issuing trademark certificates as NFTs,
Yeah, for transparency, maybe tamper-proof records could be interesting,
but potentially complicated.
but also potentially adding complexity or creating gaps between the NFT record and the traditional legal system. Pros and cons.
Okay, last category, patents. How might NFTs fit into the patent world?
The report sees potential uses mainly in managing patent rights, using NFTs to track ownership transfers.
Like we discussed for copyright provenance.
Similar idea, yes. Tracking licenses, maybe handling royalty payments automatically through smart contracts, even enabling fractional ownership of a patent, an immutable record of agreements.
What about patenting NFT-related inventions themselves?
Sure, the report confirms NFT inventions, utility patents for processes, design patents for the look have to meet the same eligibility rules as anything else.
Meaning they can't just be abstract ideas.
Correct. They need a specific practical application. The USPTO is still developing guidance and examples here as it's a new tech area.
And again, the idea of the USPTO issuing patents as NFTs comes up.
It does. Same potential benefits, transparency, security, same potential drawbacks, redundancy, complexity, bridging the gap with existing systems.
So after digging through all of this copyright, trademarks, patents, what's the big takeaway from the USPTO and Copyright Office report? Do we need new laws for NFTs?
The headline conclusion is probably not right now.
Really?
Yeah. Based on their current analysis and feedback, they don't think major changes to existing IP laws are needed specifically for NFTs at this moment.
So the existing laws can handle it, mostly.
They think so. Many of the challenges, like confusion about rights or issues with smart contracts, they feel might be better addressed through other means.
Like what?
Education is a huge one, and clearer terms of service from platforms and creators, making sure people understand what they're actually buying or selling.
That emphasis on education comes through really strongly in the report, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Educating consumers, creators, the marketplaces, everyone involved in the ecosystem, that's seen as key to reducing confusion about IP rights with NFTs.
Okay, so summing it all up then. NFTs offer some cool possibilities, those resale royalties, maybe better record keeping.
Definitely some potential upsides.
But they also bring pretty significant challenges. Enforcing copyright and trademarks is harder, and there's just a lot of confusion about what rights people actually get.
That captures it well. It's a complex relationship. The legal side is still evolving fast. We're seeing court cases right now that are actively shaping how these old laws apply to this new tech.
It really has been a fascinating deep dive.
Hmm.
And it leaves you wondering, right, with NFT tech moving so quickly,
Yeah.
what comes next? What future legal tweaks or, I don't know, practical tools might we actually need to balance all this innovation with protecting IP rights effectively in this digital age?
That's the big question, isn't it? Definitely a space to keep watching.
For sure. And if you want to dig deeper yourself, definitely check out the full report. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.